Can we trust Bethesda to make Elder Scrolls 6? A very controversial question that I'm sure many of you have very different answers to. Are we setting impossible expectations for them to reach? Or are we rightfully worried that they're going to mess this up after the massive disappointment that Starfield was? Stick around for this video and I'm going to be looking a bit into each of these points and how hopefully Bethesda will not just make this a washed down version of Skyrim. Before we start the video, if you are a fan of the content, please consider subscribing. Only about 1% of the viewers of the channel are actually subscribers. So anyway, enough of that nonsense and time to get into the video. When Bethesda made Skyrim, it wasn't just any RPG, it's one that really defined a decade. For many gamers, it's more than just a game, it's a place that they return to over and over. It's where they've slayed dragons, accidentally stolen cheese wheels, and have made memories that will define their gaming experience forever. Bethesda crafted an experience which became a massive worldwide hit, one that genuinely feels a part of the RPG genre as much as swords and sorcery themselves. As soon as you think of that genre of fantasy, you think of Skyrim straight away. So as time goes on and on every single day and Skyrim gets older and we have no update on what is actually happening with Elder Scrolls 6, our expectations are a little bit up in the air. We don't know what to think. No Scrolls game has ever taken this long to release, so we are kind of expecting a lot of it, but is it the fact that we're expecting too much? I think everyone watching this video, or the vast majority of you, will agree that Bethesda has been on a bit of a downward spiral, especially over the last few years. So it's understandable when lots of the fan base of Elder Scrolls are not really filled with too much hope regarding the next release. There's actually been so many times where Bethesda as of late has just slapped the fans right in the face, and it's almost as if we can't defend them anymore. In my personal opinion, the worst thing that Bethesda has ever done, well not Bethesda but Emil, the writer, is really insult the fans' intelligence. Saying that we're going to rip up their scripts and make airplanes, or that was paraphrased, but you know, along those lines. That was really insulting to the fan base that is meant to be immersed in your world and storylines. And then a more recent incident where the lead designer, or the former lead designer of Bethesda, say that the fans expect too much. That was another very insulting situation, especially towards the fans, who are actually investing time and money into your games, and why should we expect anything less than greatness? But I went a little bit off track there because I wanted to talk a little bit about Skyrim. The next Elder Scrolls needs to be better than Skyrim. It doesn't need to be a washed down version, it needs to be a step up. We need a successor that exceeds our expectations and actually pushes on the franchise. We need a successor that takes us back to the days where we were young playing Skyrim for the very first time. But it also needs to be fresh, something new, a new perspective or a new take on something, not just a carbon copy of Skyrim. But now it's 2024, Skyrim released like over a decade ago and the RPG world has changed. Baldur's Gate 3, for example, layered in decision making that leaves players questioning every single choice with incredible immersion and storytelling. Then I can go ahead and go over to Cyberpunk 2077 for another example. One of the best maps in the entirety of gaming history, layers and layers of storytelling and depth in the characters, and incredible decisions that you are able to make that influence the end of your game. I'm not comparing these games with Skyrim because obviously the massive time gap between these games, so it would be totally unfair. But what we are expecting of the next Elder Scrolls 6, is something on level with these game standards. Now, if you go ahead and look at Bethesda's most recent release, Starfield, do you seriously think that is up to standard with games like Cyberpunk or even Baldur's Gate 3, or even things that are actually older than Starfield, games like The Witcher 3 for example? It's absolutely ridiculous how far back Starfield feels like it is. It feels like a 2013 game, and I'm not even exaggerating. And the failure of Starfield is mostly where everyone's concerns really come from in regards to Elder Scrolls 6. So the three things I've already mentioned in this video: the lead designer saying fans expect too much, the lead writer trying to basically insult the fans' intelligence, and a 2013 game made in a very outdated game engine if we're being honest. Do you think it sounds hopeful for the next generation of Elder Scrolls? Bethesda seriously needs to realise that the player expectations and the demands have definitely changed from when Skyrim actually released. The average player these days isn't looking for just a sandbox to wander around in. They want a world that actually responds, that adapts, and that actually remembers their actions and consequences. When Bethesda created Skyrim, immersion meant beautiful landscapes and an open map. Today I'd like to think immersion in gaming has changed based off the player's needs and wants. I'd like to think that nowadays immersion means choices with weight and stories that weave around the player's decisions, just a general world that reacts to you, the player. But what is the real challenge? Well, players today don't just consume a story, they become a part of it. Baldur's Gate 3 didn't just give you options, it crafted unique outcomes. Cyberpunk, you're not just moving through the city, you're in a reactive world that feels personal. The real question for Bethesda is, will their choices feel as real as the mountains they climb? It's no longer enough for Elder Scrolls 6 to be a big game. It just generally has to feel alive, reactive and personal, because nowadays in the modern era of gaming, that's just what the player experience demands. I'd like to think now that we all are big Skyrim fans. You wouldn't be clicking this video if you probably wasn't a big fan of Skyrim, but why do we keep going back to it? Is it more than just nostalgia, or do Bethesda have something to keep hooking us in? I like to call it the Bethesda effect. Why was it when Skyrim re-released, fans would line up again and again, eager to play the game and actually re-buy the game they've already beaten a dozen times already? Maybe this isn't about nostalgia, maybe it's just about genuine loyalty. This unbreakable bond that Bethesda creates, or created because it doesn't feel like that now. Despite every glitch, every frustrating bug, every predictable story beat, and no other studio has quite managed to harness it quite like Bethesda has. I won't go into that part too much because I think that could be an entirely separate video, but what happens when this loyalty wears off? What happens when the old fan base that used to play Bethesda games can't because they're all grown up? Maybe they have a wife or kids or whatever. What happens when they haven't got the time for it, so they need to appeal to a younger generation of gamers? I'm not calling you guys old, but a lot of my analytics say that a lot of you guys are 25 plus. That isn't old, guys, don't worry, you're not washed just yet. But that tells me that people a bit older generation of gamers are the only ones really interested in Bethesda. You don't typically see a 16-year-old or anyone under that age interested in the product, and it's something I've not really seen people pick up on. But to get back to my point, what happens when the older demographic isn't able to play these games anymore? These are the loyal fans that Bethesda have been relying on for years to buy their games, even though the games that they may be purchasing are kind of bad. Now, I'm not too sure if you've got the gist of what I'm trying to say, but you may have already. If Bethesda keeps making these poor games like Starfield for their loyal fans, who they know are going to buy the game no matter what happens when these fans cannot buy the game and the younger generation go ahead and play them? They realise, oh, these games aren't so great, maybe we shouldn't play Bethesda games. You have then alienated and shown an entire generation of young and up-and-coming gamers that you are a bad game studio. Forget the past, forget all the older titles you've made. In the present moment, you do not make good games. This is a games company that lives off of nostalgia, and it is going to start wearing off very soon unless they act upon it. We have not even seen a glimpse of any progress towards Elder Scrolls 6 at all. That is seriously worrying to me. In my mind is one of two things. One, they've actually created a very good game. This is quite unlikely, by the way. But they've created a very good game and they're just kind of teasing it and sort of waiting for us. They're edging us. They're edging us and they want us to wait, until this big reveal and it's this most incredible, unbelievable game. Or option two is that they are genuinely making a terrible game. They know it's not up to standard and they can't release anything because, they'll receive backlash, etc. But for how much we critique Bethesda with all of the doubts, one thing about Bethesda is certain. They do know how to surprise us. Maybe one day we'll just be chilling, checking out some social media and you see a post from Bethesda. Maybe it's a screenshot or some sort of leaked or even a trailer of something Elder Scrolls 6 and it genuinely blows us away. I don't want everyone to feel like I don't want that because that is exactly what I want. Everyone wants this game to do well. But how can you as a company expect me and everyone else probably watching this video that you're going to make a great game that honors Skyrim when you've just been producing absolute slop lately? You're completely disconnected from the fans, and when you are writing new content for your games, you're just writing it like everyone has brain rot or something. That's the problem with so many games companies and just companies in general, movies, etc. People think everyone has this such low attention span and no one wants anything detailed and layered. They just think everyone spends their days on social media scrolling on TikTok, going through 7-second clips and just scrolling and scrolling endlessly, and that's what they think the Quest should be. It's seriously a bad thing for gaming and just a bad thing for everyone overall. There is an opportunity here for Bethesda to prove every single one of us wrong, to make every single YouTuber, I want to call myself a YouTuber but I'm not really, but everyone who's made a hate video, not even a hate video, just a critique video criticizing Bethesda and wanting them to do well, they have a moment and a chance to make us all eat our words. But at the moment, in this present time, I do not trust Bethesda to make Elder Scrolls 6. That is my verdict, that is my final say for the time being. I have seen nothing that shows me any signs of encouragement that they can make this game great, only just optimism and fan demands that really linger around in my mind that can make me make a false impression of what this game should be, not what it's actually going to be. So yeah, that'll be wrapping up today's video anyway. Hopefully you do agree with some of the points I made, but if you do disagree with some of them, please let me know in the comments. The next video I'll be creating on this channel is going to be similar to one I've made before. It's just reacting to some of your comments and some of your hot takes about Elder Scrolls 6. So leave any opinions you want to whatsoever in the comments and hopefully I'll go through some of the good ones. There's usually a lot lot of good opinions on them, so I'll be happy to take a look.